Hey everybody, my name is Jared Tate, the founder of the DigiByte blockchain. Today is Friday, May 17th, 2024, and I'm coming to you with some exciting DigiByte development updates. Now, if you're new to DigiByte, you've never heard of DigiByte before, first thing you should do is go to digibyte.org. Secondly, I want to welcome you to the community, and I want to say that in my opinion, DigiByte is the best combination of speed, security, and decentralization in the world today. Now, you might call me a little biased, but I think DigiByte is the best blockchain in the world, and it's over 10 years old, and it's actively suppressed by the mainstream crypto establishment because they view it as too much of a threat. But the reality is, if you want to be part of a truly decentralized ecosystem with no centralized company, no mass pre-mine, and a blockchain that's stood the test of time for over 10 years now, DigiByte's the chain for you. And I encourage you just to download a wallet and send a transaction. Try it out for yourself. You'll be amazed and you'll realize that you can be part of the underdog community that is going to continue to grow and prove itself day after day and block after block. So with that, this is a development update. So I've been trying to do these every 1 to 2 weeks. So let me minimize myself here and let's get right into it. Now, if you don't know, we're in the process of finalizing DigiByte version 8.22, which is the 8th major version of DigiByte that will be released in the past 10 years. So if you followed any of the previous update videos, you know we've done a ton of work and there's still some testing that we're working through. So over the last couple weeks, we've actually been in the process, and let me actually go to GitHub right here. If you haven't downloaded RC4 yet, the first thing you should do is go download it here. You go to the GitHub page, you click releases, and you go download it. But anyway, back to testing. So as you know, over the last 2 to 3 weeks, I have done a ton of work redeploying a pool that we've used in the past to test new releases called DigiHash. Now, the reason we do this is because we want to mine all 5 algorithms. DigiByte has 5 independent mining algorithms for further and greater decentralization, whereas Bitcoin just has one that's heavily centralized and the average person can have no part of it because it's basically mega corporations that mine now. Well, with DigiByte, we have these 5 algorithms, and these 5 algorithms we have been trying to mine for 3 weeks. Now, the issue is, because it's so hard to get hash for some of these algos, we actually haven't been able to test mine Udo or Scheme. Now, over the years, there's been tons of question about mining. There's a lot of confusion, and it's kind of been a black hole. And we've really ran into that with trying to get 8.22 out because we want to make sure we can actually not have any issues with mining and block production. So over the last 3 weeks, we've only been able to rent enough hash and to get enough hash donated. And thank you to those of you in the community that have helped us test mine, especially one person in particular. Thank you. You know who you are. We appreciate it. But we've been able to test mine SHA-256 multiple times, Script multiple times, Quibbit multiple times. But we, for the life of us, tried for a week, could not get a scheme block. Now, I watched the logs, and the thing is, I didn't see any issues. What I think the issue is that you cannot, or we could not get enough scheme hash power to actually get a block on that algorithm. And so I watched the logs for several days. I tried to get we tried to rent it. We went to the different mining or renting sites, and there wasn't even enough hash to rent on Scheme. Now, Udo's a little different. This pool wasn't initially configured for Udo, so I'm in the process of doing that right now. Now, if you're an Udo miner and you'd like to help us test, we could really use your help on this DigiHash pool. So if you go to digihash.digibyte.io, that's the new URL, you can help us test mine there. Now, we lowered the fee. It was 20%, but an awesome member of the community stepped up and is now providing some server space for us. So we're actually hosting this pool there, as well as the new DigiByte stats website. So I want to say thanks again to that person, although they don't want to be named, which I totally understand. But from now on, this pool is actually going to be semi-permanent, and that 10% will help go to fund core development as well as maintaining the infrastructure and other development. Now, that's not that much compared to a lot of other pools. So it'd be great if we could get more miners on this mining pool and keep them there more permanently, because that would help some of our funding issues. Because if you're new to DigiByte, we don't have any funding for anything because it's truly decentralized, which is awesome because that means the government can't come in and shut us down, because who are they going to go after? The blockchain can survive on its own, which is the way a blockchain should be. So anyway, help us test mine on DigiHash. Now, I've had questions, well, why don't you just do it on testnet? I can tell you after 10 years, testnet has never been the same as in the wild on the main blockchain, because you cannot simulate that amount of hash that we're actually seeing. Now that brings up the next main issue, which is, well, how much hash is there on the DigiByte blockchain? And I'm here to tell you, for 10 years, we have never had an answer to that until today. So let me get into that. So for those of you who aren't aware, over the last year and a half, part-time, I've been working on a new website that I call DigiByte Stats. And 2 days ago, or yesterday, I finally launched this website. I've done a ton of work on it this last couple weeks. And the reason I've been working on it so much is because I want to solve the question of this information and all these questions we have about DigiByte mining, about the DigiByte blockchain. You know, what are its vitals? What are its heartbeat? What are its blood pressure, so to speak, right? We've never had this detailed, granular information. Well, we do now, and I'm going to continue adding more. So I want to go into detail about a lot of this data and why it's important and how it relates to 8.22 testing. So if you don't know, this website is now available at digibyte.io. And once again, thank you to the individual who's helping us host this. Now, the first thing you see on the homepage is a bunch of basic information. So you have the total blocks in the blockchain. DigiByte is the longest major UTXO blockchain in the world. We've got almost 20 million blocks. It's about 19.3 million right now. We've had 47 million total transactions on chain since the chain was launched on January 10th, 2014. Total space on disk is about 30 gigabytes, so it's still pretty small for a 10-year-old blockchain when you compare it to some of these other, POS, proof of stake chains that are just incredibly large because their architecture is just very, very non-decentralized. Anyway, so the current circulating supply is 17 billion, just over 17 billion. There will be 21 billion digibytes maxed ever mined. So you can see here there's just under 4 billion yet to be mined by the year 2035. So we got about 11 years of mining before the mining fees come from transaction fees. So we got to grow the network a lot in the next decade. The current block reward, which there's a block every 15 seconds, is about 347 digibytes. Now, the reason that this site's important is I can't tell you how many times I've been messaged in the middle of the night or by somebody on Twitter, oh, there's something wrong, the sky is falling, the blockchain's not working, when they really don't understand how the chain works or why it is. And there's nothing wrong with those people. It's just happened so many times over the last 5-6 years that I literally have wanted to build this site since 2016 to answer a lot of people's questions. Well, now you all have a website you can go check first to make sure everything's healthy and everything's going well. So the cool thing about this website is if I click the blocks page, you can see the blocks as they appear in real time. You see how it just updated? So you can see which algo, the block hash. Now, it's not a block explorer, so you can't click on it, although I would like to add that functionality eventually. Now, we get to the next cool part, which algos. So the algos page shows a breakdown of the 5 DigiByte mining algorithms and their percentage of the blocks that have been mined over the last hour. So DigiByte has 15-second blocks, which means there's about 240 blocks in an hour. Now, this will fluctuate. A lot of times you need to look at like 1 to 2 days, but I've seen it anywhere after an hour. One algorithm might only have 14 or 15%, but the next hour it'll have 25%. So this is constantly changing, but you can go there to digibyte.io/algos and you can watch this in real time. So you're literally watching the chain and the share of algos. Now we get to the cool part, the difficulty plot. So once again, the way DigiByte works is it's got a real-time difficulty adjustment. So every block for every algorithm, the difficulty is adjusted. Now this is different than Bitcoin. Bitcoin only adjusts once every 2 weeks. It's got a bug, which is a bug that was exploited on DigiByte when we first started. We fixed it. That's how we created DigiShield back in 2014. We actually saw that same bug get exploited on Dogecoin, brought the chain to a standstill for like 2 days. We helped fix Dogecoin. True story. One day Bitcoin will be brought to a standstill by the bug that's in it. It just hasn't happened yet, which is kind of surprising, but that will happen over time. So what's going on here is, as you can see, the hash rate of every algorithm is independently adjusted. Now this is constantly fluctuating because it's real time. This page preloads the previous hour's worth of blocks, which is about 240 blocks once again. So you can sit here and watch this and it'll keep updating as time goes on. Now it's constantly changing, it's constantly fluctuating. And what you can see here is, like, if we notice there was more script blocks in the last hour than there was, for instance, SHA-256. Well, if you go to difficulty, you can see that the script spiked, and then it spiked really high, now it's come down. It's constantly fluctuating, so there's a bit of an oscillation, but it's working as it should. It's been working like this well, basically for 7 years now, since the latest iteration of, it's been refined several times, but it's working great. Now comes to the exciting point here, which the exciting point is, how do we measure hash rate on DigiByte? Now, difficulty and hash rate are different, okay? So difficulty, this data is coming from every time a block is added to the blockchain. In the block header, it records the algo type and then the difficulty of that algo. So that's where this data. Now, hash rate is different. Hash rate is basically all the computational power that's being used to mine, process, and secure transactions in real time. So the hash rate is how much mining power is actually being pointed at the network. And just like difficulty, this fluctuates. Now the issue is, all the mining data sites out there, and I've checked several, none of them have ever had an accurate calculation for how to estimate the active hash rate on DigiByte. And this is the issue we were running into when trying to test mine on the main blockchain, is we didn't even know how much hash rate we needed to rent to have a chance at mining blocks. So for instance, Skeen. So Skeen seems to be, from what I've seen over the last couple of weeks, heavily dominated by some of the new Russian manufactured ASICs. And none of those seem to be available to rent anywhere to even come close to getting enough hash rate to generate a Skeen block. So we need more miners out there. We need more people mining Skeen. We need to get more people actively involved. But in order to do that, we first must understand, what's happening on the blockchain and be able to analyze it. So that's why I have this website. So now, if you don't really understand hash rate, you got to understand when people talk about megahash, gigahash, terahash, it's basically, you can see here the definition of, thousands of hashes, millions of hashes, billions of hashes. That's basically how many calculations per second are being used to attempt to mine a block. So the more hash, the more secure and the more computing power is being thrown to secure the network. So right now, network-wide, which most of this is coming from SHA-256 because that's the most efficient hardware that's been developed, which SHA-256 is easy to rent. You can rent hash. If you go to Mining Rig Rentals or the other rental site, you can actually rent hash and you can point it at the DigiByte pool. All you got to do is you just go to Get Started. You go to and you just point it to this URL. It's really simple. So just go to Mining Rig Rentals, send them some crypto, rent, and you can actually mine. And you just provide an address, and then whenever the pool discovers a block, it sends it to your address. So the cool part here about this website is anybody can access it. Anytime anybody has questions like, oh, is there an issue? Is one of the mining algorithms not working? Well, go to algos and see, well, okay, we've had a few more script blocks, but I guarantee you if you came in another hour, it might say there's 23% SHA blocks and 18% script. Like I said, it'll kind of oscillate. You really need about 2,000 or 3,000 blocks to average this. Now, you could leave this screen open on your computer for like a day and come back and there'd be several thousand blocks and you'd get a snapshot. Now, eventually, I want to add a multiple time frame so people can come back here and they can look at the breakdown and the difficulty, and they basically can say, hey, you know, I want to go back 7 days or 10 days. And that way we can get a baseline for when a major event or something changes dramatically, and we can show growth over time. So I'm constantly going to be adding more data points to this website because, once again, we need to understand the blockchain itself. And all of this data is coming directly from the blockchain itself. But it's something that we've never put together, you know, visually for the end users. Now, the final page I have on here is a work in progress, and this is a page plotting all the unique nodes seen recently by this stat server. Now, I can tell you I still have several bugs in this. It's not accurately counting this. It's way under counting it. I estimate the network size is well above 500 active nodes, and an active node is just the core wallet open on a server or on your desktop. So if you have a full node wallet, download it, run it, help secure the network, because the more nodes, the better. But like I said, you have to do some special things in order to crawl the network. You can't just get it. I mean, you can get it, but you're only going to get a handful of nodes from your local node because it's a decentralized network, right? And some nodes are configured behind, you know, proxies, so you can't see them directly. So there's a lot of things, and it gets kind of complicated. So this is a work in progress. This crawler's only been up for a little while, so it's only showing 85 right now. But I did at least get the initial parts of it working, so it's a good minimum viable product. But I look forward to adding more information to this website because it's super important to be able to explain to people visually the strength of the decentralization of the DigiByte network, you know, and that's why we need to continue to help educate people, to explain things. And I feel like I need to do a bunch more AMAs or videos on a lot of this stuff. But anyway, go check it out yourself. Go to digibyte.io, just click around. Once again, if you leave the page open, it'll keep going in real time. Pretty cool. I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty jacked because, you know, I've wanted to do this stuff for a long time. So, because once again, you know, I can't believe it's been 10 years since we can actually calculate the hash rate. Now, how is this hash rate calculated? It's basically averaging the hash for each algo over the last hour. And it's this equation. I had to come up with this equation. It's based on the original Bitcoin hash rate calculation, which is actually what a lot of these mining stat sites use. But that's why it's wrong, because it's designed for Bitcoin and not DigiByte specifically. But anyway, here's a breakdown of the formula. But, you know, first thing I do in the morning now is I go check this site to get a baseline for, you know, the quote unquote heartbeat of the blockchain. But anyway, yeah, back to the website. So one last thing with 8.22. So there's this issue about a long chain memory pool error where people are trying to send multiple transactions. I cannot replicate that. There's a few issues on GitHub. So if you could provide more detail. Basically, it seems like people are sending unconfirmed transactions, which you shouldn't be doing that, and you're sending more than 25, so the client's erroring out. That's a safety feature, not a flaw, but we'd like to understand that more. So if we can get an Udo block mined, make sure we don't have any issues with the implementation of UdoCrypt. And the reason we're doing this on mainnet is to make sure that the algorithm-specific code for all the 5 mining algorithms is working live on the mainnet. So we don't want to release it until we do this. So we need a scheme block, we need an Udo block, we need to get this long chain memory pool issue sorted. Once those are done, we can do a formal final release and start getting people updated. So once again, thank you to everybody who's helped test this. I'm going to be trying to do some more public stuff, talking about some of the other people on GitHub and other devs. I know I've been kind of quiet the last couple of weeks, but that's not because I haven't been doing anything. I've just been working around the clock. I've had a lot to do, you know, personally and with this. But huge thank you to everyone who supports DigiByte, believes in DigiByte, and in helping this. You know, if you want to help fund me to continue working on stuff, you know, I, as the founder, I never mass pre-mined myself a bunch. All the DigiBytes I have, I either mined myself or I basically bought on the exchange. Most of my initial DigiByte I traded Bitcoin for back in 2014. But DigiByte's so decentralized, like, you know, here I am 10 years later as a crypto founder, and no, I'm not a mega millionaire or billionaire like a bunch of the other crypto Ponzi founders are, right? DigiByte's not a Ponzi. It's the real deal. So if you want to help me work on DigiByte part-time, here's my DigiByte address. You can hit me at PayPal and Zelle at jared@jaredtate.com. Stop sending spearphishing spam to that email. I realized when I put this video out that was a dumb idea because I've got a ton of like malware and spearphishing at that email, but oh well, that's what it is, what it is. But also Venmo at Jared C. Tate. And thank you very much to everybody who has donated and contributed over the last couple months. It's really helped. Quite hasn't paid all my bills, but that's okay. I've got some other work that I'm doing part-time to help do it. But, you know, every little bit helps. If not, I'll still continue volunteering my time because I believe in DigiByte, and I believe 110% DigiByte is on planet Earth for a reason. And with all this chaotic stuff happening out there, there's going to come a time when a blockchain like DigiByte is needed. DigiByte can resist the government overreach and censorship much more effectively than all these other heavily centralized blockchains can. And you'll see that. You'll see more of them get shut down and gone. But anyway, DigiByte will be here for the long haul because it's already been here for over 10 years. So with that, I know this got a little long, but I want to thank you all. Stay tuned till the next update and stay decentralized. Cheers.